Feel the high-voltage energy of a story that refused to be silenced by the passing of time. We bring you the electric reality of life's most intense confrontations, wrapped in a cinematic glow that never fades. Hit that subscribe button now and power up your imagination with us.
The day my sister-in-law shoved me into a display shelf. At the bridal boutique, I was still wearing my work lanyard, still had grease from the restaurant kitchen under my fingernails. I hadn't even had time to change. That's the part nobody ever asks about. Not the shove itself. Not the 3 stitches above my eyebrow. Not the way my brother stood 6 feet away and watched it happen without moving a single muscle. They always want to know about the dramatic stuff. The lawsuit. The catering contract I canceled 2 days before their rehearsal dinner. The moment his wedding fell apart like wet paper. But the part that actually broke something in me was the lanyard. The fact that I had rushed straight from a double shift to be there for them. Again, I should back up. My name doesn't matter for this. What matters is that I'm 31 years old. I run the kitchen at a mid-sized event catering company, and for the last 4 years, I have been the financial spine of my brother's life. Not because I'm rich. I am very much not rich. But because our mom got sick when he was 22 and still figuring himself out. And before she died, she looked at me with those eyes and said, "Just help him get on his feet, honey. Just until he finds his footing." I said yes. Obviously, I said yes. She was dying. What I didn't account for was that my brother's footing would turn out to be a moving target that kept relocating every time he got comfortable. For the first 2 years after Mom passed, it was manageable. I covered his car insurance when he was between jobs. I lent him money for a security deposit on an apartment. I co-signed on a credit card so he could build his credit history. Normal sibling stuff. Stuff I didn't mind doing because I genuinely believed in him, and because every time I handed over my card or signed my name, I could almost hear Mom saying thank you. Then he met his fiancée. I'll be precise about the timeline because it matters. He had known her for 11 weeks when he told me they were engaged. 11 weeks. I had been dating my last boyfriend for 2 years, and still wasn't sure I knew his coffee order. She was pretty in that very deliberate way. The kind of pretty that takes significant money and significant effort to maintain. She had opinions about everything and delivered them in a soft, measured voice that made you feel like you were the unreasonable one if you pushed back. Within 3 months of them being together, she had rearranged his apartment, replaced his friend group, and started referring to his salary as our income. I noticed. I filed it away. I said nothing, because he was happy, and happy was something my brother hadn't been in a long time. My first real warning sign came at Easter dinner, 6 months into their engagement. I had cooked the whole meal. I always cook. It's my thing. It's how I show love, and at some point she started talking about the wedding venue they'd toured that week. A vineyard outside the city, ceremony and reception package, all inclusive. "It's a little over our budget," my brother said carefully. She laughed, a small tinkling laugh. "Well, that's what family is for, right?" She said it directly to me. Not to my brother, to me. I smiled. I said something non-committal. I felt the first cold thread of something I didn't want to name run down the back of my neck. By the time the actual wedding planning started, I had become a budget line item. Not a person. A resource. The flowers she wanted were imported. The photographer she'd chosen was flown in from another state. She wanted a live band, a photo booth, a custom cocktail menu, and a dessert spread that she described to me once in loving detail while I stood in my own kitchen after a 10-hour shift, blinking at her. "I can contribute what I contributed to the venue deposit," I told her. "I can't do more than that right now, but you have savings," she said. It wasn't a question. "Those savings are for my retirement and emergencies." "This is an emergency." She smiled when she said it. Soft, measured. "You only get married once." I looked at my brother. He was looking at his phone. That was the version of him I had gotten used to by then. The one who went quiet when she made these requests, who looked away at the right moment, who never quite said the words, but never said stop either. Silence as consent. I had watched him shrink into it so gradually, I almost didn't notice it happening. I started setting limits. Quietly, without drama, I started drawing lines around my finances, the way you sandbag a house before a flood. I told them I couldn't co-sign on the venue contract. I told them I couldn't fund the honeymoon. I told my brother privately, on the phone one night, that I was feeling stretched thin. And I needed him to understand that my support had a ceiling. He said he understood. He said she didn't mean it the way it came out. He said she was just excited. 3 days later, she texted me a link to a destination honeymoon package in the Maldives and wrote, "Saw this and thought of you." Wink emoji. I didn't respond. What I want you to understand about the months leading up to what happened at the bridal boutique is that there was no single dramatic moment. There was just this slow accumulation of small injuries. The time she made a comment about my apartment being cozy, in the tone people use when they mean small. The time she told a story at dinner about a friend who had sacrificed her own comfort for her family. And was so respected for it. while making meaningful eye contact with me. The time my brother called me on a Tuesday night to ask if I could advance them money against my future inheritance. His words, future inheritance, because they needed to put down a deposit on a photographer. I said no to that one. For the first time cleanly, without softening it. He didn't talk to me for 2 weeks. She made up for it by being extra warm when he eventually called back. That was her pattern. She'd push, I'd resist, she'd retreat. Then she'd come back so pleasant and breezy that I'd feel like the tension had been my imagination. It was disorienting. I started second-guessing my own reactions, but I had a job that required me to be organized and calm under pressure. I fed 200 people at a time. I managed a kitchen staff of 15. I was not, ultimately, a person who stayed confused for long. I started keeping notes. Nothing dramatic. Just a running document on my phone. Dates, amounts, requests, and responses. Every time she made a comment that felt off, I logged it. Every time my brother went silent at a key moment, I logged that too. I wasn't planning anything. I was just trying to prove to myself that I wasn't imagining things. By the time the bridal boutique incident happened, I had 14 months of entries. The appointment was supposed to be a good day. My brother's fiancée had invited me specifically, see. I want to say that clearly, because later she would claim I had inserted myself. She sent me the appointment confirmation herself and wrote, "I really want you there. You have the best eye for this stuff." I rearranged my schedule. I left work early, which cost me overtime. I drove 40 minutes across town, still in my uniform. There were 4 of us, her, my brother, her college roommate, and me. The boutique was nice. Soft lighting, champagne glasses that I was too tired to enjoy, racks of dresses that cost more than my monthly rent. Things were fine for the first hour. She tried on 8 or 9 dresses. I gave honest feedback when she asked. Her roommate said yes to everything. My brother sat on a velvet chair looking at his phone. And then she came out in dress number 10, and the consultant quietly mentioned the price. And my brother's fiancée turned to me and said, clear as anything, in front of the consultant and the roommate and my brother, "This is the one. I know it's over budget, but you could cover the difference, right? It's not that much." It was $4,000 over the amount we had discussed. I said, "No, I can't do that." Something shifted in her face, just slightly, like a door closing. "You're being selfish," she said, still soft, still measured, but the warmth was gone. "I'm being honest about what I can afford. You make good money. That's not the point." "Then what is the point, exactly?" Her voice was getting an edge now, and the consultant had taken a step back, and her roommate was examining a rack of veils very closely. "The point is that I've contributed significantly to this wedding already, and I'm telling you I've reached my limit." She took a step toward me. I thought she was going to lower her voice and try a different approach. That was her usual move. Instead, she put both hands on my shoulders and shoved me backward hard, into the display shelving unit behind me. It happened fast. I went into the shelving, metal edge first, right into the space above my right eyebrow. I heard something crack. I felt the warmth of blood before I processed what had happened. I sat down on the floor because my legs didn't give me another option. The roommate made a sound. The consultant made a sound. My brother stood up from his chair, looked at me sitting on the floor with blood on my face, looked at his fiancée, and then said, "And I need you to understand this happened. This is real," he said. "Let's all just calm down." Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "What just happened?" Not, "What did you do?" "Let's all just calm down." I pressed my hand to my eyebrow. I looked at him. He looked away. I called 911 myself. The consultant called them too. His fiancée spent the 10 minutes waiting for the ambulance, telling the roommate that I had provoked her, and that she had just reacted. My brother stood near the door with his hands in his pockets. He didn't ride in the ambulance. He drove his fiancée home. I know this because I saw them leave through the boutique window as the paramedics were helping me onto the gurney. I got 3 stitches, a mild concussion, a CT scan to rule out anything worse. The ER doctor was kind. The attending nurse was kinder. She sat with me for a few minutes after the scan came back clear and asked if there was someone I could call. I called my 2 closest friends from culinary school. They were there in 40 minutes. One of them still in her chef's whites. They sat with me in the ER, and when I was discharged, they took me home and made me soup from whatever was in my refrigerator and stayed on my couch until they were sure I was steady. At 11:47 p.m., my brother texted me. "You embarrassed her in front of everyone." She was mortified. "I think it would be best if you gave us some space right now." I read it 3 times. I set my phone face down on the coffee table. My friend reached over and picked it up, read it, and said something I can't repeat here, but that captured my feelings exactly. I didn't respond that night. I spent the next 2 days doing 2 things. The first was filing a police report. The detective who took my statement was efficient and neutral, which I respected. I gave her the boutique's name, the names of the witnesses, the consultant and the roommate, and I mentioned that there was a security camera above the door. She told me she'd follow up. The second thing I did was call my lawyer. I have a lawyer because I co-own my catering company with a partner, and we incorporated 3 years ago. She is sharp and methodical. And when I walked her through everything, 14 months of documented requests, the police report, the medical bills, she got very quiet and then said, "Okay, let's look at what we can actually do here." What we found was more than I expected. 18 months earlier, my brother had asked me to co-sign on a business loan for a food truck venture that his fiancée wanted to start. I had agreed reluctantly, after he spent 2 weeks assuring me the business plan was solid. The food truck had never materialized. The loan was still active, my name was still on it. Additionally, I had covered the deposit on the wedding venue. A check I had written directly to the venue, with a verbal agreement that my brother would repay me within a year. That year had passed 5 months ago. My lawyer sent a formal demand letter to my brother's address. It outlined the outstanding debt, the medical bills from the ER visit, the income I had lost from leaving work early, the day of the boutique incident, and it made very clear that we were prepared to pursue legal remedies if repayment was not made within 30 days. He didn't respond to the letter. He called me, screaming. I didn't engage. I let it go to voicemail. My lawyer had advised me not to have unrecorded conversations, so I didn't. His fiancée called from a different number. When I picked up, not realizing it was her, she told me I was destroying the family. She said our mother would be ashamed of me. She said I had always been jealous of my brother, and this was just an excuse to punish him. I let her finish. I said, "This call is being recorded. Have a good evening." Then I hung up and sent the recording to my lawyer. The police, meanwhile, had reviewed the boutique security footage. The camera above the door had captured the entire incident clearly enough. She was charged with misdemeanor assault and battery. She hired a lawyer. The case moved slowly, the way these things do, but it moved. Here is where the catering contract comes in. My company had been hired, through my brother, who had used my professional relationship to broker the deal, to cater their rehearsal dinner. It was a 40-person event at a private dining room downtown. I had given them a significant discount, below our standard rate, as a family courtesy. The contract was signed. The deposit was paid. 2 days before the dinner, I called the venue coordinator and formally withdrew my company from the contract, citing an unresolved conflict of interest with the clients. We returned their deposit in full, per the terms of the contract. They had waived the cancellation clause in exchange for the discount rate, which my lawyer pointed out had actually been their call, not mine. They scrambled to find a replacement caterer 48 hours before the event. They didn't find one. The rehearsal dinner was crackers and store-bought cheese on paper plates. I know this because the roommate, who had witnessed everything at the boutique, and had apparently developed a conscience, texted me about it. She also texted me that his fiancée had cried. A lot. I will not pretend that I didn't feel something when I read that. I'm human. But the feeling wasn't guilt. It was closer to relief, the specific relief of finally having something land the way it should. The wedding was postponed. I found out third hand, through a family friend, who called to tell me in the uncomfortable way people do when they think they're delivering shocking news, and you have to gently communicate that you already knew this was coming. The assault case was resolved about 4 months later. She pled no contest to the misdemeanor. She received a fine and probation, no jail time, which I had expected and which my lawyer had prepared me for. The criminal court was never going to be the whole story. It was just one piece of documentation. The civil case, for medical bills and lost wages, was settled. I won't give the exact number. What I'll say is that it covered my ER bill, my CT scan, my lost overtime, and the cost of my lawyer's time, and there was a modest amount left over that I put directly into savings. My brother did not attend any of the proceedings. He sent his own lawyer to represent him on the debt portion. We settled that separately. We have not spoken since the night he texted me to stay away. I want to be careful about how I say this next part, because it's the part people always want to be dramatic, and I don't think it is. I am fine. I am genuinely, measurably fine. I sleep better than I have in years. I stopped having that low-grade anxiety that I had gotten so used to, that I had stopped noticing it was anxiety and started thinking it was just my personality. My kitchen staff got me a card when the civil case settled. They had all chipped in and written little notes inside. My business partner took me out to a dinner that neither of us could really afford and ordered wine and said, "To things being over." We drank to that. My 2 friends from culinary school come over for dinner every other Sunday now. One of them is teaching me to make the soup she made me in the hospital, the one from whatever was in my refrigerator. We've been trying to recreate it from memory. We haven't gotten it right yet, but we're close. My brother is still engaged, as far as I know, or maybe they finally got married. I genuinely don't have information either way. My family has opinions about the choices I made, and they've shared them, and I've listened and thanked them for their concern, and continue to do what I think is right. Mom said take care of your brother. She did not say be his bank. She did not say let his fiancée put you in the emergency room. She did not say look away from your own life so completely that you forget you're allowed to have one. I think she would understand. I think she would be the first person to understand, if she were here to hear the full story. The stitches healed clean. There's a small scar above my eyebrow. Not very visible, just a thin line if you know where to look. Sometimes people notice it and asks me about it and I give them a short version. Most of them react with outrage, which is kind. But the version I keep for myself is longer. It includes the part about the lanyard I was still wearing. It includes the 14 months of notes. It includes my friend showing up in her chef's whites and making soup and staying on my couch until I was steady. That's the version that matters. That's the one where I figure out, slowly and then all at once, that the people worth keeping in your life are the ones who show up, without being asked, and stay without being begged. Everything else is just paperwork.